call this hearing of the House Energy Committee to order. Nick, please take the roll.
Chair Fiedler,
Here.
Representative Boyd, Representative Brown,
On leave?
leave. Representative Serrato,
Here.
Representative Davidson,
On leave?
leave. Representative Donahue,
Online?
Here.
Representative Friel,
On leave?
Representative Dural,
On leave?
Representative Inglis,
Online?
Representative McAndrew,
Online?
Representative Pielli,
Online?
Representative Rusnak, Representative Steele,
Online as well.
Representative Venkat,
Here.
Online?
Chair Causer,
Here.
Representative Armanini,
On leave.
Representative Barton,
On leave.
Representative Cook,
On leave.
on leave. Representative Ham,
On leave.
Representative Kale,
On leave.
Representative Kephart,
Here. Online.
Representative Mihalik,
On leave.
Representative Rapp,
On leave.
Representative Stambaugh,
Here.
Representative Warner,
On leave.
Representative Williams.
Here. Online.
Attendance is recorded. Proceed, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. The subject of today's hearing is House Bill 660, printer's number 620. This morning we'll be hearing from Representative Jennifer O'Mara, prime sponsor of the legislation, who will join us virtually and speak shortly. We'll also be joined by Flora Cardoni, Deputy Director of Penn Environment, Madeline Parker, Outreach and Engagement Coordinator at the Appliance Standards Awareness Project, who will join us virtually. And joining us in person, thank you for being here, is Greg Moreland, Pennsylvania State Director of the National Federation of Independent Businesses. In addition, I want to note we've received testimony from the American Lung Association, the Appliance Energy Efficiency Coalition, Clean Water Action, the Consumer Federation of America, the Home Ventilating Institute, and the Pool and Hot Tub Alliance. Members, those pieces were sent to you over email and are included in your packets. I ask the members to please hold questions until all three speakers have had the opportunity to present, in addition to the sponsor of the bill. I want to thank my co-chair for holding this hearing today, and want to say that before we begin, I'd like to note how relevant this issue is right now due to the fast emergence of data centers, AI, and really everyone's increased reliance on technology and video conferencing. Energy demand is rising sharply, and we expect it to keep at that pace or go faster. That reality, as we all know, is causing rising energy prices for Pennsylvanians, and the outlook looks similar. The cheapest and cleanest energy is the energy we don't use. There are different things we could do to accomplish that goal, and so I think it is important in this critical moment that the committee take a look at measures that could encourage energy efficiency. We've all heard from our constituents about the high cost of utilities, and I think it would be wise for us to adopt smart policies that help our constituents save money on their bills. Chairman Causer, would you like any comments before we begin?
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Fiedler. I appreciate the members' attention to this issue. This is a bill that the Environmental Resources and Energy Committee last session considered, and I have a number of concerns with the bill, but I'm looking forward to the testimony today. And thank you for calling the meeting.
Great, thank you, Chairman. First up, we have the prime sponsor of the bill. Representative O'Mara is joining us on Teams. Representative, would you like to provide any comments before we move to the testimony?
Most of your meeting I've been unable to hear, so if you can't hear me, please text me. Villanova University, but I wanted to make sure I at least was there to start things off. So really took major steps forward with getting the bill through committee and out of the House. Ended up making substantial changes to the legislation after many of these conversations with key stakeholders. And my hope and expectation is that it will be part of that caucus's package again this. Competitively priced. In all cases, multiple efficient products are already available, ensuring that there is market competition. It is not a mandate for us to come into any home or business and require appliances to be swapped out. I don't know about the rest of you, but my Pico bill has been quite high the last couple of weeks after major rate. Okay. I see that I'm cutting in and out. So are you guys. I will just say thank you for running this bill. And
Thank you so much, Rep. O'Mara. I feel like there's a very relevant comment to be made about our energy demands, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But it's there. Thank you, Representative, and sorry for the technical difficulties. We appreciate your comments and your work on the bill. First, we have Ms. Cardoni. Thank you for joining us. I ask that you please keep your remarks to 5 minutes. You may begin.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like, of course, to start out by thanking Chair Fiedler, Chair Causer, Steve Petro, Glendon King, all of the members of the House Energy Committee for allowing me to testify today on the important topic of energy and water conservation and House Bill 660. My name is Flora Cardoni, and I'm the Deputy Director with Penn Environment. We are a statewide citizen-based environmental advocacy nonprofit dedicated to ensuring that all Pennsylvanians have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, protect O'Mara and Thomas Mahaffey's legislation to set energy efficiency and water conservation standards for a set of 15 commonly used appliances sold in Pennsylvania. Implementing energy conservation standards are a critical way to save Pennsylvania residents and businesses money as utility bills continue to rise and consumers are facing rising costs generally. Consider that PECO just raised its rates by 10% on January 1st, and we're likely facing another double-digit raise this summer. First Energy also raised its rates about 6 to 8%, and we're expecting to see a rise there. And these are just examples of these rising costs. These rising utility bills, the uncertainty with PJM have us all wondering what we can do to help Pennsylvania families afford the energy that's necessary for powering our lives. And we need to tackle this problem at every angle. That includes making sure that our appliances are as efficient as possible so that we're not wasting and paying for energy that we don't need to be using in the first place. House Bill 660 does just that by helping Pennsylvania ratepayers save incredible amounts of money. In fact, the proposed water conservation and energy efficiency standards are projected to save Pennsylvania residents and businesses $154 million each year by 2030 and reach $478 million per year in reductions by 2040. The same can be said for water. Last fall, half of Pennsylvania's counties experienced a drought watch. Philadelphia, where I call home, suffered through the longest stretch without rain since record keeping of that type of weather began 154 years ago in 1871. And sadly, we don't think enough about conserving water until it's too late and we've reached this point of drought watches or warnings. But conserving water can and should be on our minds year in and year out, not just when we're facing these extreme conditions. One of the main benefits to this appliance standards bill is that it would save a lot of water. In fact, it could help Pennsylvanians conserve 4 billion gallons of water annually within 5 years. The legislation concept is fairly simple. Ensure that a set of commonly used appliances sold in Pennsylvania use water conservation technology that exists and is already highly effective today. By taking this common sense step for appliances like faucets, toilets, urinals, shower heads, Pennsylvanians could save more than 13 billion gallons of water annually by 2040, which is enough water to meet the needs of nearly 250,000 Pennsylvania households over a year. And the benefits don't stop there. The standards proposed in House Bill 660 will also help reduce harmful air pollution that make Pennsylvania sick. Research shows that adopting these statewide standards help reduce harmful air and climate pollution from entering our atmosphere, which helps to protect our health. That's because the cleanest energy, again, is the energy that you don't need to use in the first place. If implemented into law, these efficiency standards are expected to dramatically slash emissions of harmful air pollutants that cause asthma and other respiratory ailments. For example, nitrogen oxide pollution would be expected to be reduced by 278 tons a year by 2040. Sulfur dioxide reductions are estimated to reach 76 tons a year by 2040. And reducing this pollution is a huge benefit for the more than 1 million Pennsylvanians who suffer from asthma. The standards in House Bill 660 are also expected to cut carbon dioxide emissions in Pennsylvania by over 483,000 tons by 2040, which is equal to taking more than 110,000 gas-powered cars off the road. So this is a simple and common sense policy that really has huge potential to reduce Pennsylvania's carbon footprint, help us tackle climate change, and reduce the air pollution that's making us sick. Now, I'm sure you are wondering, how does this bill help Pennsylvania realize all of these savings? The bill works by setting minimum energy efficiency and water conservation standards for the sale of new appliances sold in the state for these 15 appliances so that they don't use more energy that's necessary and waste energy that we shouldn't be paying for. There are two very important points I want to make about the implementation of this legislation. First, once the law goes into effect, it will only apply to new appliances sold in the Commonwealth. It will not require consumers or businesses to change out appliances they already have or retroactively be placed on appliances already sold. It doesn't make the less efficient appliances illegal to use, nor would it be illegal to buy or sell used appliances. Again, just the sale of new appliances in the Commonwealth. Second, I want to emphasize that the efficient models of these appliances are already on the market, competitively priced and available to Pennsylvania consumers and businesses today, with a lot of consumer choice and options across the appliances that meet the required standards. And most of them have a sticker price that's the same as their more efficient counterparts, which means consumers can start saving energy immediately. Finally, I want to emphasize that this legislation is modeled after successful legislation already implemented in other states. Since 2018, 13 other states have adopted energy efficiency standards for appliances, and as a result, their state residents are already reaping the benefits of more efficient appliances. I think Pennsylvania should be the next to do so. Setting appliance efficiency standards is a common sense policy with a big impact. We shouldn't be using products that expend more energy and water than they need to. And passing this bill would help the Commonwealth reduce energy waste, save water, lower air pollution, and save consumers millions of dollars on the utility bills, benefiting all Pennsylvanians. And this policy is not just beneficial, it's popular. In fact, polling shows that 83% of registered voters across parties support setting stronger efficiency standards for appliances. So given all of the benefits of the bill, the widespread support for this policy, Penn Environment supports House Bill 660 and hope that this committee will bring it up and pass this important legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cardonian. Thank you for being here in person. We appreciate it. Next, we're going to give teams a shot again. Ms. Parker, if you can hear us, if you could please begin your remarks and keep it to 5 minutes if you would.
Yes, and can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Great. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Madeline Parker, and I am the Outreach and Engagement Coordinator at the Appliance Standards Awareness Project. ASAP is a project of the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, or ACEEE, and we work to advance cost-effective appliance standards at both the national and state level. I'm here today to speak in support of HB 660, the Pennsylvania Energy and Water Efficiency Standards Act. Appliance efficient standards have a proven record of benefiting both households and businesses by reducing energy waste, cutting air pollution, and reducing utility bills for everyday consumers. And these bill savings especially benefit low and moderate income families who generally spend a disproportionate share of their income on energy bills. We found that adopting the standards proposed in HB 660 is estimated to save Pennsylvania $478 million annually on utility bills by 2040. And in total, by 2050, Pennsylvania could see up to $9.2 billion in utility bill savings. These are very significant savings that would be seen across Pennsylvanian households and businesses, helping folks save money with lower utility bills by using more energy efficient products. The standard would also provide significant energy savings, the equivalent to the electricity consumption of about 83,000 Pennsylvania households by 2040. Efficient products cost less over the lifetime of the product, more than paying back any increase in upfront costs through lower utility bills. The way the bill works is, in general, the named products would either have to meet the Energy Star efficiency level or the Water Sense efficiency level, which is like Energy Star, but for water products. And of the 15 standards proposed by this bill, ASAP estimates that 12 of these products proposed would have a payback period of less than 18 months, and 6 of the 15 would actually start seeing savings on day one. It's also important to mention that products will not have to be changed out because of HB 660, as others have already mentioned. The bill only applies to new sales of new products, and so Pennsylvanians will get to keep using their existing products as long as they wish. Since 2018, 13 states have adopted new efficiency standards, and this includes regional states like New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine. Hopefully, Pennsylvania can be next added to that list. Thank you for hearing this bill, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Parker, for joining us. Mr. Moreland, thank you for being here in person. The floor is yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Chairwoman. Greatly appreciate the invitation to be here with you today to testify on behalf of the Commonwealth Small Businesses. I'm Greg Moreland. I'm the Pennsylvania State Director for NFIB, National Federation of Independent Business. We're a national organization, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization, represent about 300,000 small independent businesses nationwide, about 13,000 here in PA, all different sectors of the economy. So we have folks that are sole proprietors that probably use very little electricity to folks that have, massive manufacturing plants that are using a ton of electricity. And so varying degrees of impact here for my members. By way of background, we ballot our members. It's not just Greg Moreland coming up with positions for our organization and opposing or supporting different legislation. We ballot our members. We take actual business owners' perspectives and translate that into action. And that's what my job is, to advocate on their behalf. 90% of our membership has about 10 or fewer employees. And so when we look at small business federally is 500, right? That's, to me, not a very small business, right? When you have multiple departments and multiple locations and large warehouses, right, you start to lose that feel of a small business. Federally, you're small. NFIB's eyes, you're not that small. 75% of our members are pass-through entities, meaning they're LLCs, partnerships, sole proprietors. Only 25% of our folks are corporations, right? And so I say this all to give you a better understanding of where our position comes from as an organization. NFIB has concerns with House Bill 660. We appreciate the sentiments of the prime sponsor, but ultimately this would restrict the sale of certain appliances on the marketplace. In a recent NFIB members ballot, 96% of NFIB members believe the federal government should not restrict the purchase of consumer products. By extension, Pennsylvania business owners want the same freedom of choice in the marketplace. NFIB is concerned that this legislation allows the government to pick winners and losers of commercial appliance products if the products truly set the standards and are on the marketplace already. we feel as though we don't necessarily need a law, right? These products are available for consumers to purchase now. If the business owner wants to go down that road of purchasing the new equipment, they can do so today. We don't necessarily need government to impose restrictions on the items that are being sold in the Commonwealth to further get to the goal. Ultimately, it is NFIB's belief that a decision of this nature should be left to the federal level, and fortunately, that work is currently being done at the federal level. The Department of Energy is required under the Energy Policy and Conservation Act to establish energy conservation standards for approximately 60 consumer products and reevaluate them every 6 years. Where our issue is with this is that if Pennsylvania has one standard, New Jersey has a different standard, New York has a different standard, the federal government has a different standard, right? We're creating this patchwork of compliance issues, right? We have multiple members who operate across state lines in multiple jurisdictions. How are they going to operate in that environment, right? And I think using one of Governor Shapiro's sentiments on the legalization of marijuana, right? What does he always say? People are buying it. People are using it. They're just going elsewhere to get it. Right? I feel as though if we do something along these lines, our business owners are savvy. They're going to look to the place that doesn't have the restriction, and they're going to go purchase their equipment there and just simply bring it back. Pennsylvania's going to miss out on the sales tax for those items. And so these are often expensive purchases, right? I think they'll just end up going to a different state that doesn't have these restrictions. Again, these products are already available on the market, many of them. If a consumer wants them, they can go purchase them now. It's not, in responding to some of the comments I've heard, it's not just all about the cost, the upfront cost of the equipment, right? It's about the operation of the equipment. Many of these businesses have operations that are already established. They already know the time frame it takes to get those dishes washed, put into the dishwasher, back out of the dishwasher, and back into the clean pile for that restaurant, right? What happens then should that dishwasher, now having new energy efficiency standards, take 2 times as long, 3 times as long? What happens then? You know, I don't know. Do they have to change their business model? Who knows? Ultimately, at the end of the day, I think this is a decision that should be left to consumers. If they want the product, they'll go get the product. Much in the way of, you know, electric vehicle mandates and things like that. Not to go down that road. But it's much of the same aligned argument, right? We should be fostering competition on the marketplace. And if these products are so good and they save people money and they're more efficient, our business owners are going to go buy them. They don't need to be told and mandated against buying something else. They cook their steaks the way they know their customers like their steaks. With the new stove operating slightly different, does that all remain the same? Does the urinal flush on the first flush? Does the shower head after, you know, in the sports arena where you have sweaty people coming off after a hockey game and taking a shower, does they get them clean, right? If you're a hotel, does your customer have a changed experience from their previous experience at your establishment? Should you change those shower heads and the water pressure not be as great? These are all considerations that our folks have to take into account when viewing this type of legislation. And so greatly appreciate the comment and the opportunity to comment on behalf of the Commonwealth small businesses. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you so much. This morning, I don't think I anticipated we would get a glimpse inside of an NHL locker room for a second there, but I appreciate it. Thank you. You got me with the dishwasher. That part I got. But thank you for being here. We'll now open the hearing to questions, and I'm going to start with a question for you, Ms. Cardoni, if I may. You mentioned in your testimony that energy prices are rising. I think we all agree. To the best of your knowledge, why is that happening? And why do you think that this bill, if adopted, would lower utility bills for consumers?
Yes, thank you for asking. Of course, there's a lot of reasons that utility bills are rising. I'll just speak to some of them. But really, I think that in this moment, we're in a bit of a kind of perfect storm of factors causing utility bills to rise. For one, our energy system here in Pennsylvania relies too much on a single source, natural gas. Gas prices are going up 19% in the last year alone. And in general, relying too much on one old, more expensive, less efficient energy instead of a diversified mix causes prices to rise. Here today, energy like utility scale solar and wind can be as little as half the cost of traditional fossil fuels. But right now it's only making up 3% of the energy mix in Pennsylvania. PJM, of course, is part of this problem. It's the buzzword we're all talking about, PJM these days. There's a long queue of projects being held up, 95% of which are clean energy that could be helping to diversify the grid. And as you mentioned, data centers, AI will cause even more, gas guzzling energy demand, which will make this problem get even worse. I'm, of course, excited to work with you in the committee on solutions to help diversify our energy mix with more clean, renewable energy and, make sure Pennsylvanians have reliable and affordable energy from a variety of sources. But today, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about energy efficiency. And one simple solution to rising energy demand and rising energy prices is just to use less energy in the first place. As we keep saying, the cleanest, cheapest energy is the energy we don't use at all. And Pennsylvania consumers shouldn't be wasting their hard-earned dollars on utility bills that don't need to be as high if they can be making a simple switch and using more efficient appliances and saving money. So this makes it easier for people to do that in the midst of their busy lives and is one of many solutions to this crisis.
Thank you. I may have another question later, but I'm going to turn it to you, Chair Causer, if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chair Fiedler. I have to correct my earlier statement. I said that the bill last session went through environmental resources, and my staff ably corrected me and went through consumer affairs. So I want to correct my statement. We did some work on the floor on the bill, but appreciate the testimony that was offered today. I think we can all agree that we all support conservation. There's no question about that. But many of us are also concerned about mandates, and even the question of increasing energy costs. A lot of the increased energy costs is because of mandates, mandated energy policy that drives up the cost, and also cuts down on energy production. And so I think that needs to be said. In looking at the bill specifically, there's language in the bill that not only authorizes the DEP and the EQB to set energy standards for many of these appliances, but also gives very blanket authority to the EQB to set these policies going forward with very little oversight, very little input even from the legislature. I guess I'd like to ask our testifiers your thoughts on those issues, because to me that's a little bit concerning. I'm a person that believes that policy should be set by the legislature and not by regulatory agencies that are mostly controlled by the executive branch. So I'd be interested in your thoughts.
I'll jump on it first there. I think classically speaking, both parties are extremely guilty of this, that in nearly every single bill, there's a line that says the agency or department will write rules and regulations in accordance with this act. Ultimately, at the end of the day, legislating's hard, right? Legislating and doing a comprehensive bill is extremely difficult, and you'll have 4 or 5 other committees you serve on. You have the House floor where everything comes before, right? And so to do that deep dive into the legislation and to write it specifically and exactly how the legislature wants it is difficult. And so that constitutional duty often gets kicked to bureaucrats and folks in agencies that aren't necessarily accountable to the public, right? And it doesn't have to go through the exact same process as the lawmaking and legislation does, right? I think what we would like to see is that, a lot of the regulations end up being approved by, if there's a significant economic impact to business, that they're approved by the legislature. They might not have to arise from the legislature, but I think regulatory burdens have become such a problem for small business owners. We have over 165,000 individual regulations on business. Like I said, my business owners have, on average, 90% have 10 or fewer employees. They don't have a lawyer on staff. They don't have a compliance officer. They don't have an HR department, right? It's the owner. They're wearing all of those hats. And so to keep up with the ever-changing environment, I just got my hair cut yesterday. Was talking about federal stuff with beneficial ownership stuff and whether it's on or it's off, or do I have to do it? Should I do it? Is it painful? There's so much floating out there that the annual report this year, for businesses, we are going through and educating businesses, right? But that's something that actually even came from legislation. But business owners are busy at their businesses conducting business. They didn't get into operating a business to read paperwork and study up on government operations, right? We're a full-time legislature. We're busy. Maybe in other states it's a little easier to track because it's part-time. But we're constantly adding new laws, amending new laws, and even sometimes we're lucky enough to repeal some. So it's difficult. It's really hard.
To comment on this bill specifically, I think your point's exactly right. The legislature is busy or considering bills all the time. I'm sure we can all acknowledge how long it takes bills to move through the legislature, given all the challenges you all are facing. I believe this bill specifically, last session, we took feedback in the amendment process and worked with bill sponsors to address some of these concerns so that EQB and DEP don't have blanket authority to just add random appliances, but so that the appliances that are covered in this bill that would be passed into law by the legislature, the energy efficiency and water conservation standards for those appliances that are included today can be updated as the industry standard updates. So these technologies keep getting more and more efficient. The technology works better. It's saving even more water and energy, saving even more money. And by being able to update, for example, from an Energy Star 2.0 to 3.0, just really allows the bill to stay current with what other states are doing and what manufacturers are agreeing to as technology progresses. So it's just really the essence of the bill remains the same, which is saving people money and saving energy, and allowing the bill to just stay updated with what manufacturers are doing as technology progresses, but it wouldn't allow DEP or EQB, as it's written after amendments and negotiation last session, to just do new appliances.
I guess we can argue the broadness of the legislation, but it's still concerning to me, and it just seems to me like it would be better addressed at the federal level. So thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I believe Ms. Parker, who's joining us online, would also like to respond to your question.
Yes, just a few notes that I'd like to add. So all 13 of these states have passed the same or very similar sets of standards. So concern about sort of muddying compliance across state lines is not particularly pertinent. Also, none of these products have federal standards except for the water fixtures. So leaving it up to the federal government for these products is not viable. Water fixtures are the one exception where states can adopt their own standards. And I also just want to speak a little bit to sort of the process of, why these products and has there been research done on, whether these specific ones are cost effective. And so, yeah, we have done a lot of research to ensure they're cost effective for consumers and that the consumers will still have plenty of choice. Multiple manufacturers already make products meeting the standard. And the goal is really just to remove the worst performing, most wasteful products. And again, it does not prevent the sale of, gas products. It does not make people have to switch out appliances that they already own. And so I just want to reiterate a couple of those items. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to a question online from Rep. Inglis.
Thank you, Chair Fiedler. Yeah, my question is for Ms. Parker. You it was a two-part question. You kind of started to talk about the second half that I was going to inquire about, which is, why are some products targeted in the bill and not others? And you started to talk about which ones were most, cost efficient. But if you could elaborate more on that. But my main question is, does this legislation in any way favor one type of energy over another? For example, electric commercial ovens over natural gas powered commercial ovens?
Yes. So the reason that these products are the ones reflected in our model bill is essentially from the ample research that we did ahead of time. And in terms of some of the other states that have adopted bills that include these products, there's a lot of education being done within the marketplace. So state agencies communicating with manufacturers and retailers about their standards being in effect, and states reaching out to manufacturers and retailers to help them understand the standards and help them come into compliance. And that has been a successful process in those states. And, we really preach education first to kind of help the market understand and come into compliance. But there is not a bias within these standards to favor one type over the other. I know that's something on the federal level, there were a lot of questions that came up maybe last year around gas stoves and misunderstanding the intention of banning a type of fuel, and that is simply not what appliance standards do, and that's not legally feasible, in fact.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to a question from Representative Stambaugh.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here today. I always find discussions of energy efficiency standards, water standards, whatever, very fascinating. I mean, federal government's been dealing with this since really the 1970s. So we've come a long way on the appliances that are, mandated to follow federal energy standards. I still think that this is really a federal issue. I think the federal government, they've proven they can handle this. There's a regulatory procedure in place for how appliances get into the queue to be evaluated. Plus, we have all these standards boards out there to also set these industry standards as well. So it's not like there's nothing going on. One thing I've always noticed, DOE, when they put out news releases when the standards are coming out, is they do discuss what the cost of business is for, basically coming into compliance with these standards. And they also usually note how many of these appliances are actually sold every year in the United States. And this bill, for these 15, we don't have any of that information. We don't know how many are sold. I mean, when I see like a commercial fryer, I want to know what the universe on that is. Are we talking, 50? Are we talking 5,000? I mean, that's a significant hit to business one way or the other. So, I mean, we're talking 50, really. Do we really need to be starting setting standards for 50 appliances that are sold every year in the state? I mean, that's just my question. I think that needs to be added to this legislation as well. And it's been noted, and I guess this is a question, is these appliances that comply with these standards are already on the market right now. So why do we need this legislation? If a business wants to buy a more efficient commercial fryer for the restaurant, they can just go and do it right now. They don't need the state standards to basically be able to make sure that equipment's on the market.
Thank you for those comments. I'd like to address a few of them, and then maybe Madeline, I'm sure, can speak a little bit more to this. So first, you're absolutely right. The federal government has made a ton of progress in energy efficiency appliance standards over the last several decades, which have proven effective in saving consumers money and lowering energy waste. Historically, how that has kind of happened is that states have taken the lead first in kind of each of these waves of appliance standards passing back in the 70s, early 2000s, where many states pass state appliance efficiency standards, and that kind of can tip the scale and encourage federal action to then standardize it nationwide. And we're in another wave of that right now with 13 states doing it. Pennsylvania, I think, should be the next, because we shouldn't have to wait for the federal government to do this for Pennsylvanians to be able to experience the benefits. In terms of how many appliances and how that's calculated, I'll maybe turn it over to Madeline to comment a little bit more, as ASAP has done some calculating of savings and has some of those numbers. But in terms of cost to business, again, this isn't a mandate. People can use the appliances they already have. They don't need to switch them out. And in the handout of savings, there's one of the charts shows the payback period. So for the majority of appliances, you're saving money on utility bills day one. So since you don't need to buy a new appliance right now, just when you're ready to switch anyway, that would be the regular cost of doing business. A few of the appliances have slightly longer payback periods, but once you hit that payback period, energy savings, utility bill savings mean that you're still saving money in the long run. And then on the last piece of, why do this if they're already available, I think we can all acknowledge that there's a lot of decisions that all of us are making every day when we're going to the store and buying an appliance. And I think you may be surprised that even if you're paying attention to this stuff, know about energy efficiency, if you're just walking into a store and you're looking at the shelf, there's not really, unless you really are like locked into energy efficiency world and know what everything means, a very good way to say, this one is more efficient and will save you money versus this one. So the average person is probably making consumer decisions more about the aesthetics, the look, the color, what happens to like catch their eye as they're walking down the aisle. So though these products are available, what this bill does is just make sure that Pennsylvanians have still a lot of options, but that they're the most efficient options so that they're not, unintentionally buying an energy guzzling or energy wasting product. Again, there's still a lot of consumer choice on all of these products, but it just makes it a little bit easier to help Pennsylvanians save money instead of putting that onus of research onto them.
Thank you. Mr. Moreland, and then we'll go to Ms. Parker.
Yeah, I have a slightly different interpretation of the bill. My belief is really that this bill kind of states that consumers need to be led to the right decision, and the government knows the right decision. And ultimately, I don't think that the cost savings are often well overstated, just like many of the tax credits we run in this building, many of the legislation, it's going to save millions of dollars. If you invest $1 here, it's going to save $4 here. You never end up seeing that $4, right? You never get the recoup of it. Will these save money? Will these save dollars for our business owners? Potentially. But we think it's the business owner that should be making that decision, not necessarily the government.
Thank you. Ms. Parker?
Yes. So I feel like quite a few of the items I would have addressed were already noted. But there's been some talk around the neighboring states or the other regional states that have adopted standards that again are exactly the same or very similar to the ones proposed here. And it's important to mention that if efficiency standards are not adopted in Pennsylvania for these products where they're regulated across most of the bordering and regional states, Pennsylvania could become sort of a dumping ground for the less efficient products that can no longer be sold in those regional states. And that ultimately just saddles consumers and businesses with higher utility bills. It's certainly not our stance or opinion that people need to be kind of led the way or that folks don't know how to research or how to choose their own products. We certainly believe that people do, but at a time when, folks are busy, money sometimes is tight in day-to-day, month-to-month, bills for folks across the country. Sometimes people don't have the time to, be in the store and checking all of those certain parameters, how much will this save me? And it is important for the market to be representative of high technology that will, deliver these helpful impacts that, again, a lot of the savings will be realized on day one, super low payback period across the board. And so, yeah, it really is not an intention of reducing consumer choice. There will still be lots of options. And it really is partly to take away that sort of burden of having to do all that research yourself. That you're going to the store, you're going online, and you're getting a product that is going to ultimately reduce your bills and help you, your family, or your business, economically in that sense.
Thank you. Our next question is from Representative Rusnak.
Thank you, Chair Fiedler. This question actually is for Ms. Parker again. So we're talking about, energy efficiency and conserving of water and using these products, which I think is important. But we're also talking about the consumers as well, and they need to be kind of considered, in this conversation. And so my question to you is, and we've talked about these other states and the surrounding states around us, so I was wondering if you could possibly tell us when this legislation was passed in the other states, were the consumers, the groups generally in favor or opposed to this type of legislation? And can you tell us why or why not?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So when legislation like this has passed in other states from 2018 to now, consumer groups have generally been quite in support. We've had letters that were signed on by numerous consumer groups, both at the the state level of that specific state, as well as federally. We have allies that work specifically on consumer advocacy, and we always work with them to make sure that the messaging and the recommendations and bills that we are recommending and putting forward really align with that. I will note that I joined the staff in 2021. So in order to give you a little bit more context about, things that happened back in 2018, 2019, 2020, I would have to get back to you. And I'm happy to do that. But in general, the consumer groups and consumer advocates have been very in support of this across the states.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the next question is from Representative Williams, who I believe is still online.
I am, Madam Chair. Thank you for recognizing me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, super. So Ms. Parker, I think I will start with you, and just to be efficient, I will direct my questions to one testifier at a time so that we don't have to go back and forth virtually here. So the 13 states that I have, according to Utility Dive, are the state of New York, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, Minnesota, New Jersey, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and the District of Columbia. So that would certainly not be all of the states that surround Pennsylvania, meaning that there will be, quote unquote, dumping grounds for those 13 states all around us, if that were economically true. My question is about federal preemption. So it is true that no state can come up with energy efficiency standards which are more restrictive than that which the federal government would do. And as you know, in February of this year, the Trump administration indicated that they were going to roll back some of these energy efficiency standards. According to the EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, he says Americans deserve access to the best products in their homes, and appliances like shower heads and light bulbs, which are the subject here. That's why I've instructed the EPA WaterSense program to overhaul their specifications that best factor in effectiveness and consumer experience, which I think is where most of America is at this point. In response to similar attitudes about energy efficiency appliances in the first Trump administration, these same 13 states and Earth Justice and Sierra Club and others sued the Trump administration for making standards that were less rigorous, if you will, than these 13 states. My question is this: do you intend, if we were to pass this legislation in Pennsylvania, that our next action would be to sue the President of the United States over our standards?
To answer that simply, no, that is certainly not the intention. I also on this one, I think I'll need to get back to you. I would like to, provide a little bit, but no, that is not our intention. To, the way the federal, let me get into it a little bit, and then I will get back to you with some more specifics. But if we look back over the past 4 years, so in the prior administration before Trump took the presidency, resumed presidency, there were really ample progress made on federal standards. And across the board, it would be like $1 trillion of over $1 trillion in savings if all those, you know, stay as they are and are not rolled back. So it's not something that we are looking for the states to try and get, you know, legally involved in that capacity. But the polls that have, you know, been done even just last year, it was something like 62% of Americans actually do support appliance standards when the question is formed in a way that makes it clear of what they actually do and what they don't do. So if you're asking a question like, you know, do you support the banning of gas stoves? Like, and then you won't ever be able to get a gas stove again. Then, you know, the majority will say, no, I don't support that. But that's not what standards do. And it's not legally what they can do. So when it's phrased in the sense of, do you support the increase in efficiency so that when you go to the store or go online, the products that are available are ones that are going to help you reduce your utility bills and help the, you know, the health benefits that come with cleaner air and reduced emissions. And then when it is phrased in that more accurate description, it is actually something like 62 to 64% across parties support appliance standards.
And I do appreciate you putting it exactly that way, which is a question to the consumer that says, if you had more information about your appliance and that they were created in a way that's more energy efficient and would help you save money, would you prefer that consumer appliance? And you're telling me that 62% of Americans agree with that. What I did not hear in the question that you framed was, and do you support the federal government or the state government in this instance telling you exactly which appliances you may buy? Instead, they would prefer to have the information. And I disagree with one of the testifiers that our consumers are not uninformed, especially in this economy, where they are ever present of the costs that are going on in their households. And with that, I would like to actually shift over to Ms. Cardoni, because something you said I found to be a bit puzzling, because of course, much of the testimony coming from you and Ms. Parker is about helping consumers achieve a lower cost of living by way of their energy bills, except that it's by taking choice away from them. And when asked about why people's utility bills were so high, the first place you went is because of the prevalence of natural gas use in Pennsylvania. And perhaps you don't know, but Pennsylvania is in the top 3 in the country for electricity export because we make so much reliable, cheap electricity in the state of Pennsylvania, much of which does come from natural gas, but 39% of which comes from nuclear power, the most expensive form of electricity on the market. And it turns out when you remove tax subsidies, natural gas is the cheapest form of making electricity in the country and in the Commonwealth. So my question for you is, given that we have a prevalence of electricity, given that low air quality is something that we all care about, why are we taking choice away from consumers when they could probably even undercut your standards by these fictitious claims that they're already using electricity at the most expensive way in Pennsylvania? Their utility costs are driven by inflation, entirely by inflation. When we get inflation back under control, your utility bills will also. Why are we taking choice away from consumers?
Thank you. I think this bill doesn't aim to remove consumer choice totally. There will still be a lot of consumer choice for each appliance. Menu manufacturers who make all the appliances, that's part of why these appliances were chosen, both because there's not federal standards, you're legally allowed to do it for the most part, but also because there are appliances for which there are a lot of consumer choice. So there could be many more appliances one could set energy efficiency standards for, but that would limit consumer choice to 1 or 2 manufacturers. And those appliances are specifically not included in the bill so that all the appliances included have a lot of options for consumers still. It's just that those options are more efficient so that we can lower air pollution and save people money.
So we do limit choices. And I think that my next question then would be directed to Mr. Moreland with regard to small business only. Do you believe that Pennsylvania small businesses are shopping for their energy outside the state of Pennsylvania or inside of the state of Pennsylvania, given the prevalence of electricity in Pennsylvania? And as a consequence of that, do you think they're shopping outside the state of Pennsylvania in these other states for energy efficient appliances because of state law or because of market driven forces? In other words, making an intelligent choice about prices, or are they making an intelligent choice because the government mandated it?
They're going to make the choice of what's available in the marketplace. They want the ability to choose what works best for them. They want the lowest costing, best working appliance they can have, right? I don't think we have business owners that just let the faucets go, that just keep the lights on all day. Ultimately, they end up paying the bill. They care about the environment too. You know, they work here, live here, have families here, and so they care about the environment. They care about the grid, and you know, they care about the grid. They care about electricity, and they want, when they flip the switch, they want and need the lights to come on. At the end of the day, that is 100% of the time, they need those lights to come on. And so our consumers, our business owners are going to shop whatever and wherever they can to ensure that they're getting the product that works for their business model, that works for their business, that works for their pocketbook, and that makes sense for them. And so wherever they can find it, that's the path of least resistance. That's where they will go.
In the most cost-effective means, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Representative Serrato.
Thank you very much. So my question is going to be directed at Mr. Moreland. Many times in your testimony, and actually from multiple colleagues up here on the panel, we've heard that this should be a decision made at the federal level and not at the state level. So I guess when I'm hearing that question, I'm interested in finding out if your organization has actually ever encouraged and, supported legislation at a federal level to make sure that energy standards are set in place. Is that anything that your organization has done previously? And is that anything that you believe your organization will actually do? Or do they oppose the energy standards completely? Because I'm getting a little bit of is it our right to make these standards or the federal government? Or is it just something that you don't want the standards at all? Because I'm a little confused where the organization falls on that aspect.
Sure. I think we recognize that the federal government already has a process in place for efficiency standards. It is reviewed every 6 years. They release for 60 different appliance items. Our federal team takes a look at that, the impact of whether or not those 60 items and whatever they're trying to do over the course of those 6 years and the changes they want to make. We evaluate all of those independently. I know for the last round, we did oppose the final rule for I believe it was the boilers. I am aware of that. And so I'm not aware of any times we supported restrictions on the marketplace. I think generally speaking, our business owners, our organization want the ability to choose themselves rather than the government.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 2 more questions. Next is Representative Boyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple questions. In this situation, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Mr. Moreland, are the businesses you're representing here today, or on behalf of, they're the consumers in this situation, not the producers? Do we have producers and manufacturers of these 13 products in Pennsylvania that you're aware of or that your organization represents?
I would have to go back to our list and do a real deep dive.
But you're not here on behalf of them as producers or manufacturers?
Absolutely not. I'm
Okay.
never here on behalf of mass producers.
Well, sure, but I'm just trying to understand. My husband's an engineer, and he, as the engineer of products such as these, he takes these regulations and then just designs to them. He doesn't, at his companies that he works for doesn't necessarily fight about this stuff. So I'm just curious about, in Pennsylvania, are people affected by the manufacturing and production of these? But in your case, you're just talking about your businesses as consumers?
I would assume there are some small manufacturers of these products within the Commonwealth. Quite honestly, I don't know whether or not they are members of my organization or not.
Got it.
But they are all consumers of electricity.
I just was sitting here thinking, my children are older, they're teenagers now, but when they were little and I was pretty strapped for money, I remember this very nice car seat coming out called the Britax. Those of you might remember. And I wanted that thing. It was $500 and I could not afford it. And I sat in the store and I cried because I thought, I can't give my child the safest thing. I'm a, not very well off mom and I can't afford this. And I was crying and I went to the saleswoman and I said, how do, as a person like me, decide what's safest for my child? And she said, all of them are safe. They have to meet the regulations of both the federal government and the state government. We're not going to sell you anything that doesn't meet those requirements. And the relief that I felt when I walked out of there with a $75 car seat, feeling like I wasn't the mom who, couldn't provide what my family needed. I was actually so relieved that those products on the shelf were not distributed based on their safety or what I was, looking for. And I was very thankful at that moment. And I think about that in these moments as a consumer. So I'm just curious, I do believe that our job here is to regulate and provide laws that provide the safety and security of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, all those consumers. So I'm just curious if there are if this isn't what you want to support those folks, what is, right? Like, what can we do? Are there alternative solutions? As a lawmaker, if this isn't what we support, what alternatives can we support that do provide lower energy, save money, and ensure that us as consumers are protecting the safety of our environment at the same time?
Yeah, I think we currently have many of those processes already in place. We already have Energy Star efficient, back when I was, a teenager and, it took 30 minutes to do the dishwasher. I just did the dishes last night. It ended up on a 3.5 hour cycle, right? But it's Energy Star. It's energy efficient. I don't know what it's doing in there for that long, but they come out clean, So it's I think we've gone from a place of not necessarily caring about how much energy the appliance uses to a place of being much more energy conscious. And I think the products on the marketplace right now, they go through rigorous testing. They go through safety tests. They have to be safe and they have to be reliable. And so I think many of the standards we already have are already sufficient. I don't know that we need to keep going back and restricting more. Ultimately at the end of the day, what are we trying to solve at the end of the day? What are we trying to solve at the end of the day? I think is the real question.
Well, and I appreciate that. So what I hear you saying is that we already have everything that we need. But as a lawmaker, I look at these savings. I do. I have to admit, I appreciate whoever provided the state appliance standards recommendation. These kind of savings estimates on electricity and gas is just so compelling in that argument. I'm just thankful for whoever brought this.
If you don't mind, I would love to just comment. I think the dishwasher example is a great one, or washing machines, where now when you go to the store and buy those things, because of federal standards, it is a more efficient version and you are saving water and you are saving energy. And there's still a lot of options and we're all benefiting. And the reasons that we have those federal standards is because states took the lead and passed state standards and then the federal government took action. And this is an opportunity to do that with this next set of appliances that do have Energy Star ratings and an easy way to make sure they're complying, but where the marketplace is full of things that are less efficient and wasting people's money and energy. So I think this is a great example of how we can take the next step on that next set of appliances and realize pretty big savings in terms of electricity reduction, energy reduction, air pollution reduction for a relatively minor switch.
Thank you. And our final question for the day is from Rep. Pielli, who has been waiting patiently online. The floor is all yours, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So much of my questions actually been answered with this last exchange, but what I would like to seek more clarification from Mr. Moreland on his views of this proposed legislation. So if I'm not misunderstanding you, Mr. Moreland, when you were asked directly if there are any Pennsylvania businesses that you know of that are adversely affected by this specific legislation and these specific products, it seemed like either there weren't or you weren't aware of any at this point in time. Is that correct, sir?
On the manufacturing of these products, correct. I'm not aware of any particular business or any member that is in NFIB.
Okay. And then you mentioned, sir, that businesses, of course, are looking to have savings, to be able to have choices for the bottom line. And it seems to me that these products would save money. And so I'm wondering where the problem may be from yourself and your organization when we have a potential bill that is not necessarily adversely affecting any manufacturers, and at the same time giving a choice to businesses, small businesses, to cut down on cost on the bottom line, and a sort of grandfather clause where if they do have equipment that does not comply, they could keep that equipment until the end of its life cycle.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Representative. My previous comment about it's not all about the cost. The cost is a one-time event, right? You purchase it, you pay for it, right? It's about the operability of that appliance, right? Does it work in the exact same manner? Does it heat as fast? Does it flush as powerful? Does the hot water come on as fast? Does it change the customer experience? Because remember, it's about the customer. The customer is the one that's keeping that business in business. And so if you're changing the way the steak tastes, if you're changing the way the food tastes, if you're changing the bathroom experience of that individual, that can leave a bad taste in their mouth in which they came to your store previously. They were used to one set of standards and one product or service. And now that has slightly changed and they don't necessarily like it. I think we've all stayed in many hotel rooms where you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh, thank God I'm going to get a nice peaceful shower. And you go and turn it on and it trickles down. And that is the worst feeling in the world. But it's a realistic experience, right? I'm not going back to that hotel where that just occurred because they clearly have some sort of, I don't know if it's an energy efficient, shower head on there or what it might be. Maybe it's just an issue with their water pressure, but it's not just about the cost. It is about the operations and the operability of the products as well.
On that note, it sort of reminds me of an old Seinfeld episode with faucets that I recalled. Probably good time for me to end my question there then. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you to the testifiers for joining us. Thank you to the members who are able to join us as well. I appreciate the focus on consumers. I'll be thinking about that tonight when I load my dishwasher at home. Thank you, Chair Causer and members of the committee. Do you have any closing remarks? All right. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending.